I will never forget the darkness I lived through in those days, the experiment in which I lost everything, but I activated my inner eye. I saw things so horrifying and terrible that my mind seemed to collapse in the face of such horror. I realized that the human being lives in the illusion of the senses, and one should not venture beyond it. However, I was completely deprived of it, and I saw hell plunge beneath my feet after the experiment. I had the nerves connecting my brain to the sense organs repaired. I regained my sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. My beloved five senses had finally returned. Finally, the voices in my head ceased, finally drowned out by the noise of traffic. Finally, I no longer saw those screaming and monstrous faces, now that the sunlight blinded me. My five senses filled me completely after days and days of complete darkness. I was no longer accustomed to them. I returned to my daily life, trying in every way to ignore what I had experienced in that horrible experiment, eating like all humans, looking at their phenomenal world, and listening to their sounds. Poor deluded beings that we are, we do not know what lies beyond those five senses, those small five that blind us from the horrible reality behind. We live in an illusory cave, but outside the cave, there are monsters, ghosts, demons, and nothingness. After months and months of daily life, I realized that something inside my brain had awakened, and the senses could not silence it completely. I can still feel them. Occasionally in the silence, I can hear the voices of the dead. Occasionally in my peripheral vision, right on the edge of my sight, I can see white faces screaming without emitting sound. I can smell the scent of a corpse where a murder happened years and years ago. And I haven't slept for days because in the night my senses are almost extinguished, and my mind is tormented by nightmares. This sixth sense of mine, which shows me if death has occurred around me, manifests as a gray eye. It's as if the vision in my right eye suddenly turns black and white intermittently, like an old television. But this way, I can see the past. I was in Dallas, and while my left eye saw an empty street, my right eye saw the president's car accelerating as he was shot in the head. I can no longer ignore this inner sense of mine, and I have decided to embrace it. I no longer want to separate from my five senses because I don't want to return to that horrible tunnel of darkness, but I found a way out. According to Timothy Leary, some drugs can activate hidden psychiatric processes and, consequently, unlock certain mental processes unknown to us. I decided to enhance my power by trying them. The process is divided into 8 stages. In the first stage, you must master the most primitive part of the brain, the reptilian part, the one related to the survival of instincts, the oral phase of Freud. To do this, a large dose of morphine is required, and obtaining it was easy since I work in a hospital. When I obtained this power, I could control my instincts and activate the maneuvers instilled in me by a million evolutions. I can sense danger, sniff out hostility, react quickly, and my survival is at its peak. The second stage is the development of emotion and territoriality, domination and submission. It's the part of the brain that deals with controlling territory, imposing oneself on other members of the species, being the alpha male, the superman, the lord of nice, or cooperating, being one among many, developing justice and pity. As it happens in herds, this corresponds to Freud's anal phase. Barbiturates are needed for this stage, and I had to extract them from some anxiolytic drugs. After mastering this part of my mind, I became capable of imposing myself on others, being the leader in every situation, but also collaborating better, understanding the group's needs, and developing a more effective tactic depending on the goal. The third stage is the neurosemantic one. It's the stage that deals with signs, symbols, and language, and the part of the mind that developed with the theory of memes, Dawkins's mental concepts that spread like viruses and relate to each other. It was born when the first hominids who differentiated themselves from primates emerged. To master it, I needed the purest methamphetamine I could find, and a contact in New Mexico provided it to me. After mastering it, I became capable of understanding every grammatical structure, even the oldest and most difficult languages. Mathematics became much easier to comprehend. Furthermore, I can grasp concepts much better and spread them among the population. The fourth stage is the socio-sexual one, which concerns morality, social interactions, and culture. It developed with the first tribes. To activate it, a drug called MDMA is needed, and after mastering it, you become capable of navigating any social agglomeration and understanding its dynamics. With just a few glances, I can understand everything about interpersonal relationships. The fifth stage is the neurosemantic one of the relationship between the nervous system and the body. It was born when the upper classes, instead of working, sought personal reflection and sensory pleasure. To master it, I began to meditate with the drugs I was taking, and when I finished, I was perfectly capable of controlling my body. I could endure or cancel the sensation of pain, heat, or cold, break marble slabs with one hand, run marking Olympic records, regulate heart rate and hormones, control my metabolism, and enhance my senses. The sixth stage is the neuroelectric one. I had to take light doses of LSD to activate it, but I gained control over my brain's operating system. Pure transcendental forms. I could change my conception of time and space, learn mathematics and logic in no time, triple my IQ, make my memory instantaneous, thicken and densify my cerebral cortex. The seventh stage is the neurogenetic one. I activated the hidden genes of my DNA in the brain, unlocking my genetic memories and those of my ancestors for generations beyond measure. I learned everything about them. I learned to speak Latin and Greek as if I were born in the era when everyone spoke them. I began to perceive archetypes in my mind and understand the collective consciousness of humanity. The doses of LSD became increasingly higher. The eighth and final stage is the quantum one, in which the mind can understand itself down to the level of subatomic particles, exceed the speed of light, teleport information, transcend its own physical body. But to do this, I had to take much more LSD. After doing this, I started studying everything, from literature books to languages, science, and philosophy. I met the greatest minds and thinkers, discussing and listening to their theses in search of the truth. I was almost reaching a conclusion, but it wasn't enough. So, I went into a cave and isolated myself from everyone again, eliminating my senses. I studied my mind, my brain, my nervous system, and my body for a long time until I felt one with it. Then I felt the thoughts of my closest relatives and friends as if they were mine and their bodies. I learned to extend my sense of self to their identities and the friends of my friends until I could feel all of humanity connecting like a great mind. I also felt all animals and plants, all life being one great entity. Then I expanded my consciousness even more, to bacteria, proteins, atoms, and everything on the planet. I felt the earth and heard its voice. I extended my mind to the stars, to the entire galaxy, to its incredible complexity. Billions and billions of stars, planets full of matter, energy, and life. I extended it further, watching galaxies dance in the universe like a great free clock, a very complex painting. Everything is connected. Everything has meaning, no matter how small. I observed the past, the present, the future spread throughout the universe as a great chain of interconnected causes and effects. But there are infinite possible chains, and now I saw them all possible realities, all together as chains that go everywhere, all held together by something that comes together towards a center. I followed the chains. I looked for what holds them together. I looked for the truth, and at that point, I saw it. And I screamed. I saw the truth in the eyes, and the truth saw me. He who fights monsters must be careful not to become a monster himself. For when you gaze long into the abyss gazes into you. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe to the channel for more creepypastas. Until the next one.